Hello and welcome to this week's angling blog. This week you join me on the banks of the canal and we're in search of pike. As you can see from the condensation on my breath, it's a cool morning on the bank and the canal that we're fishing behind is the colour of mud. So it has actually been a while since I've been back out on the bank. In the past week or so there's been two constants in the world, me being in bed sick and number two, the rain that's engulfed the country with the storms that have been around. What that means is all the local rivers are at the top of their banks. The River Weaver has actually got flood defences up in Northwich, the River Ribble, the top of its banks. So when it's like that, we do turn to the canals for the bit of sport. So as you can see on screen now, the canal is really coloured. There's about 18 inches visibility in the water, and it is a venue though that does hold colour through the year. So hopefully we can get a pike on the bank. So for me personally, I'm just glad to be out of the house, getting that fresh air in my lungs and chilling out. The float rods are out behind me. What we'll do is we'll take a look at where we've positioned them and hopefully where we're going to find Mr. Pike. Before we do get into this week's vlog, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody that has subscribed to the channel, enjoys the videos, leaves the comments down below and enjoys the channel. The support you leave the channel really is appreciated and thank you very much. Flipping the cameras around, you can see we've got a rod in the water. That is just to reduce the drag. You can see there the visibility is pretty terrible. You can't even see any of the rod. The first float rod, we've got just the sun covered over there, and that is on the top of the shelf, and that is on a smelt. The other rod again at the other end of them bushes, just hoping that there's a nice clear patch there, because as you can imagine, the bottom will have a lot of leaves on it, so I'm hoping that where there's no trees, there's no leaves. We've just placed a bait there, and that is on a mackerel. So the banks here are pretty terrible. There's years of leaf litter decomposing on the bank. You have to do your best not to slip and slide, but what it does mean, it means that there's always kind of colour in the water, and where there's colour and pike, they've got to survive. My thought is that they're not really hunting all the time by sight. They're using that sense of smell and picking up a lot of dead fish in their diet. It's a venue that I've not been for a couple of years, but the pike here were never always in great condition, as in they didn't carry a lot of weight. They always looked like they were having a hard life. So yeah, I put that down to the fact that they're scavenging a lot of the time, and by that, hopefully, if they come across a meal, they won't turn it down. While we're waiting for the run, I'll just go over the baits that we've got with us today. And the water being coloured, got plenty of smell. So we've got mackerel, we've got some sardines, plenty of oil. Mr. Trout, again, that oil content, you know, gonna smell in the water. The pike here generally are jacks to low doubles. So we've got some smaller baits that might mimic, you know, the food that these pike are feeding on. And we've got some more sardines there as well. And beneath all that, we've got some smelts as well. So we've got a good range of baits. You know, visibility with the smelt, it's just one of them baits that pike find. And then in the other baits, we've got plenty of oil. We've started off with a mackerel and a smelt on each rod. So we've just got a run there on the mackerel. So I'm just gonna give it a few seconds to develop and we'll give it a strike. So a nice solid strike, and we're into the first pike of the day. Just got to keep that pressure on. You can see there the clarity of the water isn't great, and when you do learn your venues, you get to understand the size of the fish that they can hold. Some canals that I go to, you know, you're expecting a double, you know, decent fish. On this canal here, a double is a good fish. You know, you're dealing with a lot of singles, but it's just about getting a bend in the rod. You can see there that water is mucky, but we've managed to get the first fish of the day hooked up. So that pike is in the net resting, and the smelt rod is off on its way. So you had a bit of a hectic start. Let's take a look. That fish there has come on the smelt. So you can see there, one on the mackerel, one on the smelt. We've got a pike resting down there, and the second pike on the end of the line. A great start to the day. So what a start to the session it's been. The coloured conditions, I was hopeful of hopefully getting one, but to have two, more than made up. The first one, and the bigger of the two, and a lovely pike. It always amazes me up here with the colour in the water how they do hold on to them colours. Like I said when I was playing the fish, it is a venue that has got a lot of jacks in. A double figure pike is a good fish for here, but it's always been good for a bit of sport. This one, the second pike of the day, coming while the other one was resting in the margin, waiting to be blogged. You can see on screen now though the damage that this pike's got from a boat going through. With the water being so coloured, I imagine you don't see them coming. So a bit of behind the scenes of Daddy's Angling Blog. You can just see the banks that we're dealing with, how muddy they are. I put me unhooking mat down to kind of keep me clean. But yeah, 2 pike, more than happy. Let's let them both go. And there they go. So I've just put them 2 pike back, and I thought I'd have a quick go with the wobbling rod, make the most of this period of feeding. And it just banged halfway across with another pike. It's been a really good start to the session. Cobwebs have well and truly been blown away this morning. Pike number 3, and we've had them on all baits and all methods. This one coming on the wobble halfway across. It just shows the hunting ability of these pike. The rod banged, and a few seconds, set the hooks, and pike number 3. After a tough week being poorly, I'm more than awake now. Let's get them rods back out and see if we can get another. So when I arrived on the bank this morning, you always hope to get one pike and you leave a happy man. The sun is just breaking through the trees at the start of a new day. 3 pike on the bank, more than I could have hoped for. The float rods are back out, and yeah, hopefully that's not the end of that feeding period. Pike can have a habit of just going hard and then long periods of nothing, so that's why I grabbed that wobble rod just to try and make the most of that window, and that worked with that other pike. So yeah, you've got to make the most of these windows of opportunity. With that light now on the venue, you can just see how much colour is actually in the venue, and I guess it just shows how good these pike are at hunting. You know, they are survivors, aren't they? Whether it's coloured, clear, like mud, they find a way of feeding, and I guess that's why they're so good at what they do, and I guess why they're so valuable to waters. You know, in an ecosystem, you need predators in the water that clear up the dead fish and keep that balance of healthy fish in the water. And I guess today's just a prime example of how good they are. So it's been probably about 40 minutes and the other rod again just sinking away. That has to be the laziest pike in the world. Zero fight. It's literally just come to the other side of the canal. It's probably like me, been a bit poorly and can't be bothered. But pike number 4, you can see the hooks just in the tip of its mouth. There we go, pike number 4, and plenty of activity this morning. And I have to be honest, when I seen the water, I'd have been happy to get one. I'm not always somebody who has ultra confidence when it's really coloured, but sessions like today give you that confidence, don't they? This bite's probably taken about another 40 minutes to come on that simple float setup, which I'll show you in a minute. So let's take a quick look at the setup. Today I'm using my Fox Predator Elite deadbait rod in 12 foot, 3.25 pound test curve. I've got a Zelos reel with 60 pound braid. I've got a float stop on the line to set the depth, 2 beads. We've got a high vis dart, that's down to a quick change sinker. I've got a swivel there to put my hook link on, and then my homemade wire trace down to one of those Devon baits mackerel. For those that are new to the channel and are wondering why I use a 3.25 pound test curve, it's because I fish rivers, lakes, canals, reservoirs, all on the same rods. They're always set up, and I always use the same rods so I can pick them up and go out. So with a chest infection most of the week, I've just had time to catch my breath, and then we've had a boat go through, which, given how coloured the water is, isn't a disaster. It might actually move some of them silvers about as well, but you can just see there where the boat's been through. It's about 11:30 now, and what a start to the morning it's been. You know, you've got to be happy with 4 pike, and like I say, on the venues that you go, over the years you begin to learn what they can produce, and don't get me wrong, there could be a big pike in here, but over the years it's been what we've caught today. Lots of jacks and maybe the odd double. So it's coming up to midday now, and Mr. Pike's most definitely had a feed and quite a bit of bait out of that box. Time for Danny to have a bit of dinner, and you can't beat a meal deal from the co-op. Chicken butty, some chicken and a drink. Sat back here now after a couple of days stuck up in the house, feeling sorry for myself. It does feel good to be out in the fresh air again. And obviously 4 pike on the bank, you feel good anyway, don't you? You've that lift that being on the bank gives you, but when you're catching, you're buzzing, aren't you? Whether I'll be saying that when I get home later on is another matter, but for now, I'm going to sit back, have my dinner. The rods are back out. And for regulars to the channel, they'll know it's very rare a vlog goes by without Mr. Swan. And he's my little mascot for the day. I got my butties out, he was straight out the canal. I've given him a little piece of it, but I have a feeling now I'm never going to get rid of him. So when you're wobbling a bait, there's one little trick you can do, and it works a lot of the time, and that is on the last wobble to just leave the bait down the margin down here, open the bail arm, and anything that's been following it in, hopefully, will come along and take the bait. And you can see there, tiny little jack has snaffled out that bait. And over the years on the canal, I've lost count how many extra fish having the wobble rod with me's caught me, and that trick of just leaving it down the edge after a couple of wobbles always works. There are a few things that are essential when you're doing this. I've had a couple more wobbles through. You can see there in my trace. I'm just letting it fall to the bottom, but keeping my finger on the spool. I'm feeling that bait onto the bottom, so I know when it's on the bottom. I can see the line is tight to the bait. Then in case of placing the rod on the floor, you can see the line there under tension to the rod tip and straight down to the bait, so that pike can't help but move away when you get a take. One thing that I do need to stress, again, it's a rod that you've got to keep your eye on. It's not one that you can just leave and look around. You've got to be watching that line all the time, because you're looking for any movement or any bouncing on that rod tip that would suggest a pike's picked up the bait. It's a very good tactic, but one you've got to use responsibly. The session does come to an end there now, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being out on the bank today. After being poorly the past week or two, getting out in the fresh air really has made me feel good. Coming onto the venue this morning and seeing the colour, I was a bit apprehensive, but to get them bites that we've had, I leave a happy man. The only thing that remains now is for me to wish you all tight lines in your own fishing, and I'll catch you all next week. Tight lines.